legislature, you deal with almost every issue. You're reading an awful lot of law. My 18 years in the legislature, my decisions in the Tax Appeals Commission, I did file some briefs in the Supreme Court while I was in the legislature. And that, I think, people said, all right, he is a leader. He is surprisingly bipartisan, even in a very partisan job. He works well with the other side. He's reasonably cerebral. I mean, he's no dope. He can handle this material. And of course, I set out to prove that all of those assessments were correct. If we determine the results of a judicial election for the Supreme Court on the basis of one or two cases that might or will come before the Supreme Court, and assuming that the person elected is going to decide the cases in a particular way, that is a complete direct attack on judicial independence. I'm driving in my car down from Appleton, and an idea comes in my head. And I picked up my cell phone, I called. 36 hours later, both houses had passed legislation to fix that problem.
Was it a funding issue?
No, it was just a little change in the law.
It was not tweak?
A little tweak in the law. It was not, this is not something huge, but I was able to work with Democrats in both houses, get something passed. It turned out to be bipartisan, get done. In the past, I was able to go to a Republican speaker, a Republican chairman of the Finance Committee and a Democratic chair, and get funding for the CCAP program. It had always been up and down like this. We got stable funding for the CCAP program. That's one reason I feel some obligation, if that program kind of goes off the tracks, to bring it back on and make sure it's fair.
A funny thing happened to me on the way to my concession speech. The people of Wisconsin told me to tear it up and go back to work. Thank you, Wisconsin. Elective office is never smooth because it is impossible to please everyone. In our system, the privilege of making public policy requires the consent of the people. The people of Wisconsin have given me an exciting and rewarding life with happiness far exceeding disappointment. I'm very grateful for the rare opportunities they have given me and have tried to repay the public's trust with a positive vision and my best effort. I suppose the principal thesis of my remarks to you this morning is that mutual understanding and improved communication between the legislative and judicial branches is likely to promote healthier inter-branch relations and better government. The judicial branch is almost entirely dependent on the decisions of other branches, and in many states upon local governments, for its resources. This creates perpetual anxiety among judges. The judiciary plays a major role in bringing in revenue to state government, but it has virtually no control over the appropriation of that revenue. Consequently, it is vitally important to the judiciary that other branches appreciate the mission and the responsibilities of judges, because the executive and legislative branches normally have the last word on levels of funding, judicial salaries, judicial staffing, facilities, and support. I continue to be a champion of authorizing the court to go to places like
Marquette University Law School and the University of Wisconsin Law School, because I think there is such a close link between the court and the state's two law schools, and that a very useful purpose would be served by firming up and enriching that relationship by taking the court to those schools. Part of my motive for raising this issue is just as we are going to Greene County in part to honor the new Justice Center that has been built in Monroe, I think it would be useful to recognize by a visit from the court the new law school at Marquette.
Folks who had to pick someone this year and ultimately picked me certainly merit sincere thanks. If I were more modest, I would quote Lincoln's observation that you can fool all of the people some of the time. But the committees that made the selection probably thought that my age might have thought that my eligibility wouldn't last very long. As some of you know, in 2021, a prominent Madison journalist wrote a political essay quoting a statement I made when I was still on the court. She introduced the statement as follows, quote, "The late conservative Justice David Prosser," blah, blah, blah. Some journalists confuse facts with desires. Leaders can be magnified or diminished by the qualities of those around them. I've been fortunate throughout my life to be surrounded by people who are smarter and better than I am, and whose high principles, decision-making skills, and impressive willingness to help others have absolutely influenced my behavior. I don't tell anybody, but some of those exceptional people were Democrats. I realized how badly I had misjudged the media, and I learned an important lesson. When people say things publicly, and when legislators write legislation, good intentions are not enough. Good intentions need to be realistic and truthful, and their consequences need to be carefully thought out. Thank you again for this wonderful award, and I hope my remarks have not added to my mistakes. Thank you very much.